If you had told 22-year-old me that someday I'd be the reason my boss was walked out of the building by security, I probably would have burst into nervous laughter. Me? No way. I'm the keep your head down, do the work, don't rock the boat type. At least that's who I used to be. My name is Lauren. I'm 29, and until last year I worked as a marketing analyst at a mid-sized software company in Austin, Texas. I'm the person who lives in spreadsheets, tests ideas, and quietly makes other people look smarter in meetings. For most of my career, that meant my name rarely appeared on slides, even when the work was mine. Managers would clean up my charts and polish my talking points, then stand at the front of the room taking credit with a confident smile. I thought that was just corporate life. Then my boss stole the biggest project of my career, tried to erase me from it completely, and bragged he'd rewrite my performance review if I complained. So I stopped being the quiet one. And I used every policy the company had to make sure he never did it to anyone else again. I joined Helixware 3 years after college. It wasn't a famous company, but it paid decently and looked good on a resume. We built workflow software for hospitals, unsexy, but stable. My role was simple: turn data into stories. I'd dig through usage logs, customer surveys, and /B tests, then present my findings to the marketing team so they could craft campaigns and pitch decks for sales. My first manager, a woman named Denise, was fair. She gave credit where it was due, looped me into meetings, and made sure people knew my name. Then she left for a bigger role at another company. That's when Greg arrived. Greg was the kind of manager who spoke in buzzwords and sport metaphors. Low-hanging fruit, full court press, let's run it up the flagpole. He had perfect hair, a loud laugh, and a talent for making executives feel like they were the smartest people in the room while feeding them things we had done behind the scenes. At first, I tried to like him. He asked for my input, told me I was a rock star with the numbers. He'd swing by my desk with his reusable coffee cup and say, "Talk nerdy to me, Lauren, what's the data saying?" He made it sound like we were partners. But there were little signs. He'd forward my reports to upper management with a quick "here's what I found" and no mention of my name. He'd ask me to mock up slides, then change only the font and present them as his own. "Don't worry," he'd say when I looked unsure. "Everyone knows you're doing great work. I'll take care of you at review time." Review time came. My rating was meets expectations. No promotion. No bonus bigger than the standard. "You're still early in your career," Greg said, shrugging. "You've got plenty of time for big jumps." I almost believed him. Then the Q3 initiative came along. Every year, Helixware picked one big bet project, something that could shift revenue in a serious way. For Q3, the big bet was a new product package for small community hospitals, a market we'd mostly ignored. We were losing those deals to cheaper competitors. Leadership wanted a strategy to fix that. At the all-hands, the VP of marketing, a woman named Carla, stood on stage and said, "Whoever cracks this gets noticed. This is career-making work." Greg elbowed me. "That's us," he whispered. A week later, he called me into a conference room with glass walls and sticky notes all over them, like we were in a TV show about startups. "Lauren, this is our moment," he said, pacing. "You're going to lead the analysis. Deep customer research, competitor breakdown, pricing elasticity, all of it. I'll handle the positioning and internal politics. Together, we'll own this." The way he said we made my stomach flutter with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Am I actually going to present?" I asked. "To Carla and the VPs, eventually," he said. "But first we need something bulletproof. I'll be the face at the early check-ins. Once leadership's bought in, we'll get you on stage. Trust me." I wanted to be suspicious, but it was the biggest project I'd ever been asked to lead. So I dove in. For 3 months, my life was Q3. I interviewed 10 existing customers and 20 prospects over Zoom. I read competitor white papers. I built models to test pricing scenarios and adoption curves. My apartment became a maze of sticky notes and printed charts. My roommate joked that she needed a badge just to walk through the living room. I named the project Sprout in our files because the new package was meant to help small hospitals grow. Every document, every slide, every chart. Sprout V1, Sprout Customer Interviews, Sprout Revenue Model. Everything lived in a shared drive folder, but I was the main editor. My name flooded the version history. Greg showed up in my office a few times a week to check in. He'd skim my latest deck, nodding along. "This is good," he'd say. "Really good. Let's make sure we frame this for leadership. They don't care about all the math, just the story." He'd tweak a title, reword a bullet, then say, "I'll run this by Carla in our 1-1. We don't want too many cooks in the kitchen early on, you know?" The first time he invited me to that 1-1. The day before, he had to reschedule because Carla was swamped and wanted a quick download just from him. "It's fine," he'd said. "This is how the game works. I'm your sponsor. You're my secret weapon. We win together." I told myself he was right. Meanwhile, I barely slept. We had to launch before the hospital purchasing cycle kicked in, or the whole thing would be delayed another year. My models needed to be airtight. 2 weeks before the big leadership presentation, Greg dropped the line that still makes my blood pressure spike. "Hey, about the exec meeting," he said, leaning against my doorway. "I'm going to take point on presenting." My hands froze over my keyboard. "I thought we'd co-present," I said. "You said and we will," he cut in quickly. "Later when this is more fleshed out. Right now, it's better if it comes from management. You know how they are. Don't worry, I'll make sure they know you're the brains behind it." It sounded he'd been at the company longer. He had relationships. Maybe I was being paranoid. Still, I asked, "So my name will be on the deck?" "Of course," he said, a little too fast. "Now, can you send me the latest slides, and maybe take your name off the footer? Looks cleaner that way for execs. We want it to look like an official team deliverable, not a school project." I hesitated. Then I opened the file, removed my small created by Lauren Chen marketing analytics tag from the bottom, and sent it. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. A week later, he stole everything. The exec presentation was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. "Greg told me, no need for you to come, it'll just make you nervous. I'll swing by after and debrief." I spent that morning pretending to focus on other work, my legs bouncing under my desk. At 10:02 a.m., Greg burst into my office with a huge grin. "Crushed it," he said. "They loved it. Carla said it was the most thorough strategy she's seen in years." My heart leapt. "That's amazing! Did she say anything about me?" Greg's smile faltered just a hair. "Well, I didn't want to overcomplicate things, you know," he said. "I framed it as something my team's been working on under my direction. Once this starts rolling, there'll be plenty of chances to spotlight you. Don't worry about the credit right now. Focus on execution." Something in me went very, very still. "Wait," I said slowly. "You didn't mention my name at all?" He rolled his eyes like I was a child. "Lauren, this is how it works," he said. "Leadership thinks in terms of leaders. They don't care who made the charts. They care that I can bring them a strategic plan. Your win is my win. My win is your win. We're on the same team." Most of my life, that speech would have worked. But I was tired. Tired of staying late while other people got praised. Tired of hearing "this is how it works" used as an excuse for basic disrespect. "So if Carla asks who built the models, what will you say?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'll say my team did, which is true. And if she asks specifically?" I pressed. His jaw tightened. "I'll say you helped," he said. "Why are you making this a thing?" This attitude is exactly why people see analysts as difficult. "I just want credit for the work I did," I said, my voice shaking. "And you'll get it," he snapped. "On your review, which by the way, I write. Keep that in mind before you start drama you can't control." The threat hung between us. We stared at each other for a long second. Then he turned and walked out. I sat there, numb, my cursor blinking on a blank email draft to Jenna, my friend in HR at my old job who'd warned me about managers like this. I deleted what I'd started to type. Instead, I opened the shared drive and clicked on the Sprout folder. Version history. My name. Hundreds of edits, comments, late-night timestamps. His edits were their 2 minor wording changes, a few added slides. An idea started forming in the back of my mind. If Greg wanted to play politics, I could play policy. Our employee handbook talked a big game about integrity and recognizing contributions. It also mentioned an ethics hotline for misrepresentation, fraud, or theft of intellectual property. I wasn't sure if stealing credit for a strategy deck counted as theft, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him build his career off my work while threatening mine. Not this time. I didn't storm into HR. I didn't send a mass email exposing him. What I did was, every conversation about the project from that point on happened over email or Slack. If Greg pinged me with, "Can you run those numbers again?" I'd reply, "Sure, for the Sprout project I created. I'll send an updated model by EOD." If he came by my desk with a quick ask, I'd send a follow-up email. Per our chat just now, I'll handle X task for the Q3 Sprout strategy I've been leading. He never responded to those notes. But they piled up. I also started talking to people quietly. Our UX researcher Mia had helped me with customer interviews early on. "Has Greg talked to you about Sprout lately?" I asked one day over coffee. She snorted. "Only to ask for a copy of your interview notes." "Why?" "Just wondering who he's giving credit to," I said. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Not you. Apparently I helped," I said. She shook her head. "That tracks. He once took the slide deck I made about user drop-off and changed the title to Greg's Insights before sending it to product. I wasn't the only one. Our designer Jacob had similar stories. Greg loves to say my team built this and then forget which team member he's talking about," he said. He tried to put his name on my concept mock-ups once. I told him we either share credit or he can design his own damn screens. Did he back off? I asked. "Yeah," Jacob said. "He knows better than to mess with creative. We're loud. Analysts, on the other hand, we just quietly made things work." I decided it was time to change that. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Carla sent an email to the marketing leadership list, Greg, a couple other managers, and, surprisingly, CCing me. Subject: Sprout strategy. Greg, great work on the Sprout proposal. This is the kind of thinking we need. Lauren, I'd love to see more of your work on projects like this. Greg says you've been helping with the numbers. Can you both join me for a working session next Tuesday at 2 p.m. to refine for the board presentation? My stomach twisted at helping with the numbers. Greg replied within minutes. Absolutely happy to. Lauren's been a great support. Looking forward to it. He did not correct her about what helping meant. I stared at the email for a full minute, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I did something the old me would never have done. I hit reply all. "Hi Carla, thanks for looping me in. I'm excited to keep refining the Sprout strategy. For context, before Tuesday, I've been leading the analysis and building the models, interviews, and core narrative for this project since January. Happy to walk you through the data side in detail during our session. Best, Lauren first saw the 3 dots of Greg typing almost instantly. Let's sync 1-1 before then, Lauren, to make sure we're aligned on messaging," he wrote privately. Translation: shut up. Instead, I forwarded Carla's email to my personal account and then opened the company intranet. Ethics hotline. It wasn't just a phone number, there was an online form too, allowing anonymous or named reports. I started typing. I described the pattern. Greg repeatedly presenting my work as his without attribution, explicitly telling me to remove my name from decks, and threatening my review when I raised concerns. I attached screenshots, The Slack message where he wrote, "Don't tell anyone you made this, I'll handle the leadership part." The email where he said, "I'll deliver, it'll sound stronger coming from management." The performance review where he took credit for strategic initiatives I'd led. At the end, I clicked the box that said, "I am willing to be contacted for follow-up," and signed my name. If I was going to do this, I wanted it on record. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Lauren," I answered. "Hi Lauren, this is Sandra from Corporate Ethics," a calm voice said. "We received a report from you regarding potential misrepresentation by a manager. Is this a good time to talk?" The old me would have panicked. The new me closed my office door and said, "Yes, it is." We talked for 45 minutes. I laid out everything. Not just Sprout, but the pattern over the last year. The projects where my name had been erased. The threats about my review. Sandra listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Is there anyone else who can corroborate your account?" she asked. "Mia, our UX researcher," I said. "Jacob in design. Maybe others. Greg has a reputation, and you're comfortable with us opening a formal investigation?" she asked. "This may involve interviews, document reviews, and discussions with HR." I thought about Greg's smirk, his keep that in mind when he mentioned my review. "Yes," I said. "I'm comfortable. Thank you," she said. "We take these concerns seriously. We'll be in touch." I hung up, my hands shaking. 5 minutes later, an email popped up from HR. "Hi Lauren, could you meet with me and Sandra from Corporate Ethics tomorrow at 10 a.m.? We'd like to understand more about your experience on the Sprout project." Melissa, HR business partner Greg, was copied. So much for subtlety. He was in my doorway within seconds. "What did you do?" he hissed, closing the door a little too hard. I kept my voice calm. "I reported a concern to ethics," I said. "About misrepresentation and retaliation." His jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea how bad this makes me look?" he demanded. "I think your actions made you look bad," I said. "I just told the truth." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You're throwing away your career over ego," he said. "No one likes a troublemaker. When this blows over, don't expect me to go to bat for you." "I won't," I said. For the first time since we'd started working together, I saw something like fear flash across his face. Then he left. The meeting with HR and ethics felt like a deposition. Sandra was there, composed, with a legal pad. Melissa from HR sat beside her, laptop open. "Lauren, we appreciate you coming forward," Sandra said. "We understand this can be uncomfortable. Our goal is to understand what happened and determine if any policies were violated." I nodded. "Let's start with Sprout," she said. "Can you walk us through your involvement from the beginning?" I did. I showed them my original proposal email. The shared drive structure. The version history with my name all over it. I read Greg's messages aloud. "Don't tell anyone you made this, I'll handle the leadership part. You'll get credit later, I promised I'll keep that in mind before you start drama you can't control." Sandra's pen scratched across the page. "Has he ever given you written credit for your work?" she asked. I thought of the generic "Lauren is a solid contributor" line in my last review. "Not really," I said. "Has he done this to others that you know of?" Melissa asked. I mentioned Mia and Jacob. "We'll talk to them," she said. At the end, Sandra closed her notebook. "Here's what will happen next," she said. "We'll review the documents you've provided, pull additional emails and drive logs, and speak with Mr. Davis, Greg's last name, on potential witnesses. During this time, we ask that you not discuss the investigation with your coworkers. Do you feel safe continuing to work under his management for now?" I thought about it. "He's never been physically threatening," I said. "But I'm concerned about retaliation. He's made comments about my review." Melissa nodded. "We'll put a note in his file that any negative changes to your performance rating or responsibilities during this period will be reviewed," she said. "If anything happens, let us know immediately." It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I left the meeting drained. The next few days were... Greg avoided me completely. No check-ins, no Slack messages, nothing. Mia mentioned she'd been pulled into a confidential conversation with HR. So I told them about the time he tried to slap his name on my research, she said. And the time he told me, we don't need to highlight everyone, it all rolls up to me anyway. Jacob had a similar story. I might have used the phrase habitual credit thief, he said with a grim smile. Meanwhile, the meeting with Carla loomed. Tuesday 2 p.m. came fast. I walked into the glass-walled conference room with my laptop, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Carla was already there, flipping through a printed copy of the Sprout deck. Greg sat across from her, tight smile plastered on his face. "Lauren, great to finally get you in the room," Carla said, motioning to a chair. "Greg's told me you've been doing some solid analysis on this." "Thanks," I said, taking a seat. Greg jumped in before I could say anything else. "Yeah, Lauren's been a big help pulling numbers," he said. "I've been shaping the overall strategy and message, but she's our data person." That was it. That was how he intended to frame it. I glanced at Carla. She didn't look convinced. The ethics meeting must have reached her ears. "Before we dive in," she said, "I want to understand the division of work here. Who initiated Sprout? Who conducted the customer interviews? Who built the models? Who designed this deck?" Greg opened his mouth, but Carla held up a hand. "Let's start with Lauren," she said. My heart hammered. "Sure," I said. "I proposed Sprout in January as a way to address our small hospital churn. I've led the customer research, built the pricing and adoption models, and created the deck you're holding. Greg has given feedback on positioning and wording, but the underlying work is mine." Greg let out a sharp laugh. "That's a bit of an exaggeration, don't you think?" he said. "We all know these things are team efforts." Carla turned to him. "Greg, I've reviewed some preliminary information from HR about an ethics concern on this topic," she said, her tone suddenly all business. "For everyone's sake, I'd like us to have clarity and transparency. Lauren, can you show us the file history?" I swallowed and opened my laptop. The Sprout deck blinked onto the screen on the conference room monitor. I clicked File, then Version History. A sidebar slid out, listing every major edit. My name. Over and over. Dated back months. Greg's name appeared only in the last couple of weeks, with minor timestamped changes. "These are the automatically tracked versions," I said quietly. "You can see when the file was created, who made each set of edits, and how often." Carla leaned forward, reading. "Click here," she said, pointing at the earliest version. The original deck popped up, rough but recognizable. "Created January 12th, by Lauren Chen," the header said. She nodded, then flipped to the comments pane. "Comments from me, should we test this price point? Jacob, can you review this slide design? Mia, does this match what we heard in interviews? Comments from Greg, change we recommend to Helix Wear is uniquely positioned. Add slide with summary for execs." Carla sat back. "Greg," she said slowly, "help me understand how this supports your earlier statement that you shaped the overall strategy. It appears Lauren has been leading not only the analysis but the narrative." Greg's face flushed. "I mean, sure, the typing is hers," he said. "But the direction came from me. I've been coaching her this whole time. That doesn't show up in version history." I almost laughed. "Coaching. That's interesting," Carla said. "Because when I asked you in our 1-1 last month who was working on Sprout, you said, 'I've been driving a new strategy for small hospitals.' You didn't mention Lauren by name." Greg stiffened. "I said my team," he insisted. Carla looked at me. "Did he?" I shook my head. "Not in the emails or calendar invites I saw," I said carefully. Carla tapped a pen against the table. "I'm not here to adjudicate everything in this meeting," she said. "HR and ethics are handling that. But I will say this. At this company, we do not tolerate managers taking credit for their employees' work or threatening them over performance reviews. She turned to me. Lauren, from now on you will be the primary presenter for Sprout in any analytics-related meetings, she said. Greg, you can support on messaging, but the leadership needs to hear directly from the person who built this. Understood? Greg's mouth opened, then closed. Yes, he said, the words squeezed out like it hurt. Good, Carla said. Now, Lauren, walk me through your model assumptions. For the next hour, I did exactly that. It was like someone had flipped the camera in my own life. Instead of watching someone else explain my work, I got to do it. Carla asked smart questions. I had answers. When I didn't, I wrote them down to follow up. By the end, she was nodding. This is strong, she said. We'll need to tweak the messaging for the board, but the foundation is solid. Nice work. Thank you, I said, trying not to grin like a maniac. Greg barely spoke. When the meeting ended, Carla left with the deck and a promise to loop us in on next steps. Greg lingered. You think you've won something here? He muttered as the door closed. HR investigations drag on. People forget. At the end of the day, I'm still your manager. Maybe for now, I said. But I don't think leadership is going to forget version history. He glared at me. You're done in this department, he said. No matter what happens to me. He stalked out. For once, his threat didn't land. Because within a week, what happens to me became the only story. Corporate investigations are slow. You imagine people in suits poring over documents in a dark room. The reality is a lot of emails. Sandra from Ethics kept me loosely updated. We've concluded the fact-finding portion, she wrote after 2 weeks. We'll be meeting with senior leadership to review our findings and recommend next steps. In the meantime, Greg acted like nothing was wrong. He barked out assignments in meetings, avoided eye contact, and made a point of calling on everyone but me. Coworkers started whispering. Have you noticed Greg's been in a lot of closed-door meetings with HR? Mia asked. Yeah, Jacob said. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. Whatever you did, keep doing it. I wasn't doing anything. I was just waiting. 3 weeks after that conference room showdown, I walked into the office and felt the atmosphere shift as soon as I stepped off the elevator. People were standing in small clusters, pretending they weren't talking about something. Our department Slack channel pinged. All please join the 9:30 a.m. huddle in conference room B. Melissa, HR. My pulse quickened. At 9:30 a.m., we filed into the glass-walled room. Greg wasn't there. Melissa from HR stood at the front, flanked by Carla and Sandra. Thanks for coming on short notice, Melissa said. We know you're all busy. She took a breath. As some of you know, we recently completed an investigation into allegations of misconduct involving a member of the marketing leadership team, she said. Based on our findings, that individual is no longer with Helix, where effective today. A soft murmur rippled through the room. Melissa continued, we know this kind of change can be unsettling. We can't share all the details, but we want to be clear. We take our code of conduct seriously. That includes giving proper credit, avoiding conflicts of interest, and treating employees fairly. She glanced at me briefly before looking back at the group. In the interim, Carla will be overseeing the team directly while we determine next steps, Melissa said. If you have concerns or questions, my door is open. Afterward, people clustered around me. You did this, didn't you? Jacob whispered. I shrugged, heartbeat thunderous. I just told the truth, I said. Later that day, I saw Greg. He was walking down the hallway with a cardboard box, a security guard at his side. He didn't look smug anymore. He looked. Our eyes met for a second. There was no apology there. Just rage and disbelief, like he still couldn't quite fathom that the rules applied to him. Then he looked away and kept walking. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved that he wouldn't be able to do this to the next analyst. Or the next. relieved that my work, for once, had my name on it. In the months that followed, Sprout launched. We hit our revenue targets. Small hospitals signed up. The board called it a bright spot in a challenging year. Carla made sure my name was in every recap. "It's Lauren's brainchild," she'd say in meetings. Huge shout out to her for driving this. She also did something else. She promoted me. Not into Greg's exact role, that went to someone more senior, but into a lead analyst position with a raise and a bigger voice. "I want you to feel like you don't have to hide behind anyone anymore," she said during my promotion meeting. "You earned this." I cried in my car afterward. Not because of the money. Because someone in power finally saw me. My revenge wasn't just getting Greg fired, though I won't pretend that wasn't satisfying. It was changing the narrative about what I was worth. A year later, when a recruiter reached out from a larger tech company with a role that made my old job look tiny, I had options. I wasn't trapped under someone else's idea of my potential. When I interviewed with my now manager, I told her the condensed version of the story. "I want to work somewhere that values integrity and credit," I said. "And I've learned I'm not afraid to use the systems in place if something's wrong." She nodded. "Good," she said. "We need people like that." Sometimes, late at night, I still doubt myself. Did I ruin a man's career over just credit? Couldn't I have handled it more quietly? Then I remember the look on his face when he said, "I write your review." Keep that in mind. I remember the way my stomach sank as he took my deck, my models, my sleepless nights, and tried to pass them off as his own. People like Greg count on people like me to stay quiet. To be grateful for crumbs. To accept this is how it works as law. I'm done with that. Now, whenever a junior analyst comes to me and says, "My manager presented my work without mentioning me," I tell them my story. I show them where the ethics link is on the intranet. I walk them through version history. I teach them phrases like, "Per our earlier conversation, I'll be leading this analysis." I tell them, "You're allowed to take up space. Your work is allowed to have your name on it." My boss stole my project. I got him fired. But the real victory was realizing I never had to let anyone steal my voice again.